Hey there guys, TC Made with TC Gaming. Wanted to bring you a UE5 retarget video for Synty Polygon. And this is based on a couple of methods that I've found from two of the YouTubers that I watch. AngelV came out with a really great workflow for this that is an improvement upon some other stuff that I was working on based on tutorials from Jobutsu. So Jobutsu and AngelV are the ones to thank for giving me the things that I needed to bring this to you. Get a chance, go out and check their channels out. Make sure you like and subscribe and follow their content. They've got a lot of great stuff coming out. What we want to do to get this all started is we're going to go into games. We're going to create a third-person game. I'm going to call mine Synty UE5, and we just create that. We're going to give that a second to build. And then what we want to do is we're going to go in and add our Synty Polygon pack. For the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to say dismiss this and update. But for the purposes of this, I am going to use the Synty Polygon City pack. So I just go in here, Polygon. I'm doing this from the ground up for those of you who are new to the engine. This might help you a little bit better than those of us who have been around for a while and just are migrating over. So Polygon City pack, I'm going to say add the project. Of course, this is an older pack, so you want to go show all projects, and I'm going to go to my Synty UE5 and then select the version for 427 to make that compatible. We'll say add to project, and once that is loaded, we can go back over here. We should see our Polygon City pack is in. Now, world settings is where you will go to find your selected default pawn class. If you don't see world settings, you can find that over here by going to the window and selecting world settings. Once you get in here, you can hit the little magnifying glass with the folder on it, if you can't see that. And if this tray's not up, the content browser, content drawer is actually here. I just docked mine to give me that familiarity from UE4. But if you click this, it'll take you to the default pawn class, which in this case is the BP third-person character. Now, we're going to start out by going to this mesh that is in here. I usually look at it through the viewport. I want to change this real quick to... I want to change this to Manny, which is the male character version, and I want to change the anim class to Manny. This is just up to you, whichever one of these two you want to use, but this is our primary mesh. And this is the part that I got from the AngelV video that's pretty cool. So if you go in here to the mesh, you can go to add, and you can just type in mesh, and you'll find skeletal mesh. So we'll add a skeletal mesh as a child to this mesh. And I'm going to call this, just for my sake, I'll call it character mesh. And what we can do is we can go into our character mesh, and I'll put in the businessman suit, and we're going to build an animation blueprint for him that we'll come back here and get in just a second. But you can see that we're just basically going to overlay him right on top of this other character. If we go to the primary mesh, we can go up here and type in the word visible. And if you go to visible, we can uncheck that. And then there's also a visibility that's going to be in here for, let me see if I can pull this up right here. So just viz or visit. So under advanced optimization, visibility based on anim tick options, you want to put this on always tick pose and refresh bones. So now that mannequin that's under the original mesh, the mesh rather, is no longer visible, but we also want to flip this on so that it does continue to process animation data. In order for this to work in UE5, we have to build a couple of things. One of those things is an IK rig, and the other one is an IK retargeter. In the content folder for UE5, there's a characters folder drawer. Under mannequins, you'll find rigs. There's an IK mannequin rig here. What I'm going to do is expand my Polygon City meshes folder out to characters so I can see it. I'm going to drag IK mannequin over here to characters, and I'm going to say copy here. I'm going to go to my characters folder. I'm going to find that IK mannequin, and I'm going to just rename this real quick to, I want to call this IK rig underscore Synty, so that I know it's for the Synty character. And the other thing we'll need to do is to build a retargeter after we get done with this. So now that we've put this in, if you open it, you'll see it's still pointed to the original mannequin. So to fix that, we close this window, right-click on here, and go to Asset Actions, and Bulk Edit via Property Matrix. And under the display over here, there's an Imported Skeleton option for the Preview Skeletal Mesh, and you can click this little grid for Pick Asset. And we're just going to grab that businessman with the shirt on. And we can go over here, File, Save All, close that little window, open up this IK rig again, and now you should have the Synty character in here. Now, what you'll notice is that these targets, these goals, are not in the proper location. If you build this data manually and you specify these, there's videos that show you how to do that again from the videos I showed you earlier. I'll have links in the video for the description for this. But you can go through and manually specify those and get these in the right spot. I found that it doesn't really matter too much for what we're doing right here. It may matter later, and if so, then you'll have to go and correct it using those other methods to create these chains. But the way that this new process works is that each character has to have a rig, and the rig basically tells it what the bone structure is. In the old one, you had one rig, and you had to say, my character matches this rig using these bones. In this one, you specify chains of bones for the rig on the character that can then be used in the retargeter that we'll look at in a second to match those up and tell it, well, the spine on this character affects these bones, so anything that affects the spine affects the spine chain on my other character. Well, on a Synty character, the spine chain is actually only 3 long, so we want to go and change this. Spine 1, spine, we'll go down to 3. And, you can just take a look at these things and go down through here. One of the big issues with the hands is that the Synty character really only has 3 fingers. They have a thumb, they have an index finger, and then they have a single finger called finger 01 that actually covers the ring, middle, and pinky. So if you want to fix these, you just go to the left pinky, for example, and you'll go down here and say that's actually finger 01 left, and it ends at finger 01 or finger 04 left. So that's called finger 01 to cover the pinky. Same thing for the ring. Finger 01 left to finger 04 left. And then the thumb's okay. There is no middle finger, so that's finger 01 left to finger 04 left. And the index is actually called index finger 01 left to index finger 04 left. And we do the same thing for the right side. So we go down here to right pinky. You have to scroll down to get that, but that's finger 01 right to finger 04 right. The right ring is going to be from finger 01 right to finger 04 right. The thumb's okay. Again, the middle has to be finger 01 right down to finger 04 right. And the right index, of course, is going to be called index finger 01 right and go down here to index finger 04 right. Everything else you could leave the same. Now, there are no twist bones on this character, so if you want to, you can go through and just trash all these. Again, not a big deal. But now that we have that saved, we can go and build our retargeter. Now, the idea behind this finger naming convention on here with the 3 fingers that are actually 1 finger on the Synty character is that any animation data that would be sent to any of the fingers on the other character's hands that you would get an animation from will just close that one big giant finger. Okay, so we're going to get out of this IK rig here, Synty rig. Now what we want to do is we want to create a new thing called an IK retargeter. So we're going to right click and go to animation and build an IK retargeter, and we want to base that on our IK rig. I'm sorry, let me do that again. I grabbed the wrong thing here. We want to right click on this and say animation IK retargeter, and we want to actually get something to copy the animation from. Our from is the IK mannequin, but I'm going to call this IK retargeter underscore and then Synty. Okay, if I open this up, it'll have the source, which is our mannequin, and we can go up here and pick our target IK rig asset. So in this case, we want to pick the IK rig Synty, and it'll set these guys side by side. Now immediately, if you go to chain mapping, you can see what I was talking about earlier. You have these things are named the same, so it automatically knows that the left index drives the left index or the spine drives the spine. But if you also go into the asset browser and scroll down a little bit, you'll see that they have these animations, which right now will work on both characters, but you'll see an issue with the targeting pose. So if I just put in here that I want to walk forward, you'll see that the character, for the most part, is walking forward and looks pretty good except for the arms. To fix this, you go to Edit Pose, and it's going to give you this view. And basically we're going to do the opposite of what I've done in all my other videos, where I would take the mannequin and put it in a T pose. In this case, I'm just going to take the Synty character and try and put it in close to an A pose. So if you click on this little ball socket here, you're going to get the one for the select and rotate objects, which you can also get by pressing the E key. We're going to grab this and pull this down about 50. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other ball on the shoulder, push this down about 50. And if you click on the elbow and you get this bottom thing, you can pull this up about 40. So you can see the range right there, 40, 40. And same thing here, I'm just going to pull this one up about 40. Now, if you want to see how they look as far as an overlay for each other, there's this target actor offset value. And I'm going to make this a 0, which will put them right on top of each other. And then you can kind of pan around and see if they match similar pose. And you can see that I have a pretty similar bend in the elbows, pretty similar slope to the arms and everything. And if I now play that animation again, this when I come out of my edit pose here, you'll see that they match up pretty good. Now his left arm could be up a little bit further, and maybe, I think his left elbow could come up just a little bit. And you can tweak this however you want to. Again, you just go to edit pose, and I'll give these guys a little bit of offset so they can actually see them. And I would grab this and just bring this up another 10. And then go out of edit pose and just let them walk and see if they look okay. And that could also be that his arm might not be down enough. But again, you can tweak this however you want to. Just overlay them on top of each other and play around with them. You want to fix it, you go to edit pose. I give them a little bit of a gap. And let's just try with the arm up here. Maybe just bring that down a little bit. But the values should be pretty close. Let's see what that does. Save that, come out of edit pose, and again, 0 them out on top of each other. They look pretty good there. I mean, it would be acceptable anyway. Okay, so now we're going to continue on to, now that we have our IK rig set up for this character, what we want to do is go and build an animation blueprint, as we had said earlier, that's going to be for our businessman character here. So I'm going to go and say animation blueprint. And I'm going to pick that on the SK character city rig. If you go into the meshes and look at that, that's what they actually called the skeleton for this character when it came in. It's not a rig that we built over here. It's the one that came with the character by default. They're calling skeletons rigs in some of these cases, just so you understand what that is. So if I click on this and go create, I will now have an AngelV, and we're going to call this ABP for animation blueprint underscore Synty. Okay, and if we go into the animation blueprint, this part again is something that was picked up from checking out the AngelV videos. You can go in here, right click, and type in Retarget, and you'll see a thing that says Retarget Pose from Mesh. And if we click on this, or drag this over rather, we can go over here and say where the preview mesh in here, no, not the preview mesh, in the details, you click on this retarget pose, and it'll bring up the IK retargeter asset that you want to use. So we're going to use the one from the IK retargeter for Synty that we had. And we'll compile that and save it. You'll get a couple of warnings here, not anything to really worry about right now. And if we go out to the third person blueprint again, now that we've created that animation, we can go back to our character mesh and then pick this as the ABP Synty and look at this in our viewport. We'll see that he's animating properly. Compile that. And when we hit play, if everything went well, we should have our Synty character. And he's being driven by the animations from the original Mannequin out of this project, and his IK works. Because essentially what you have is that the UE5 skeleton is wearing the Synty character as a mesh on that skeleton. So this is a real quick, easy way to define all that information. And if things aren't working for you properly, what I would recommend is to go to the 2 videos that I'm going to leave the links for in the description and go and check those out and see if you can find some additional information from there. In the information that's provided by AngelV, he actually has some additional settings and constraints and things that he puts in there to make these animations look a little bit better. So some of that stuff might help you out. I'm just running this way so you can see that the hands are actually kind of closing up like they should on the animations. See how his hands are folding up? There's a little issue there with that one finger, but I think that's probably just an issue with the original animation. But you can see that they do close, so retargeting that would work. And as Angel said in his video, if you go in here and look at this now, you can apply this method basically to any of the meshes that are in here. So if I go to the character mesh, of course, this I'll be able to switch this over. I could drive this right on to, I won't use that one because that's the female character. But if I went in here like the male police and go back out to the third person map and hit play, you'll see I now have the cop there, and same thing, he's going to work the same exact way with his IK already intact and able to work. You can change offsets and effectors and things like that. Again, check the other two videos, and while you're there, subscribe to those guys. If it wasn't for people like them putting out their videos, people like me wouldn't have these extra things figured out as quick to get them back out on the street for you guys as well. So one of the other things I will talk about real quick, that's the meat and potatoes of that, but the other thing I want to talk about real quick is if you're in one of the skeletons for the original characters here, you go again to the content characters, mannequins. If you go into the mesh and you pull up the SK Mannequin skeleton, under the window here, there's a thing that says Asset Details. They have this thing now that it says Compatible Skeletons, and you can put in a compatible skeleton here. What this does for you, I'll go ahead and do it real quick. If you have additional animations that you want to pull in, I'll go just to animations, and we'll just grab something kind of small. I don't know what I have in here that's kind of small, so I'll just do Longsword Anim Set Pro. Synty UE5, add to project. What you can do is in your project, if you have a skeletal asset that is similar to the previous mannequins or whatever, you can actually go in here and say that that skeleton is compatible, and it'll automatically allow the animation data to be shared between all the different assets that use that same skeleton. So Longsword Anim Set Pro, animations, I'll just grab some in place, right click on this and say find skeleton, and you'll see that there's a UE4 mannequin in here. That UE4 mannequin skeleton, I'm just going to rename it well, actually, I'm not going to do that in this video because it'll take a minute because there's a ton of these on here, but just remember this UE4 mannequin skeleton. When we go up to characters, mannequins, meshes, SK mannequin, window, asset details, compatible skeletons, we can pull that down and look for the UE4 mannequin skeleton, and you look at what I hover, it says Game Longsword Anim Set Pro. If you click on that, now, if I go to the asset browser here, watch what happens. Nothing here yet, see that? All the longsword data from the game, from the longsword thing is now available to this character. Okay, so you'll have all these different animations that are available to anything that shares that skeleton. Now, in theory, what that should mean is that you can also do that with your Synty character because it's passing through that same stack of skeletal assets. But I haven't confirmed that with this one yet. If you can't do it that way, then the other thing that you can do is you can use the UE4 mannequin in this character as the compatible, and then retarget that using the IK retargeter. But I'll cover that in a separate video because that's another process that you may have to know for additional handling of these types of things. But we can go just real quick just to see if it works. We'll go into Longsword Anim Set Pro, or actually, I'm sorry, Meshes, and we'll pull up one of our characters, and I'll just pull up this businessman with the shirt and preview animation. So they're not in here. So I think you'd have to use that to pass through on the UE4 mannequin side and then retarget them over to UE5. And what I mean by that is if you went to the characters, I'll just do it real quick while we're in here. Let's go back to mannequins, back to meshes, SK mannequin, window, asset details, and I'll just trash that for now. There's another mannequin folder in here. You go to mannequin UE4 meshes and go in here to that skeleton and go window, asset details, compatible skeletons, and grab the UE4 mannequin skeleton here. Well, when you do that, what you could do then is in these animations that are for the Longsword Anim Set Pro, they would also be available to this other character. And there's a rig in this character set for retarget on the mannequins. So if you go mannequin rigs, there's one in here called, maybe under mannequin UE4 rigs, UE4 Manny to UE5 Manny, or UE5 RTG UE5 Manny, UE4 Manny. So if I go up here to RTG UE4 Manny to UE5 Manny, since I have that animation available, see now it's going to retarget automatically onto this other character. And by doing it that way, that may actually make it so that on the Synty character, you'd be able to do that as well. Again, I'll cover this in other videos, but there's different ways to handle these things. I want to give a shout out again to AngelV and to the other video here for Jobutsu, and I'll put these links in the description. Again, my name's TC, made with TC Gaming. If you get a chance, go check out Jack Saves Easter. It's on the Synty, or on the Steam store. It's in one of my previous videos. Thanks again, you guys. Take care and have a great night.